Welcome to Skytech-Lens. Let's talk about aluminium, the metal in your soda can, the wings of your airplane, and the backbone of countless American industries. It's a material so common we rarely stop to think about how deeply it shapes our daily lives. From the cars we drive to the buildings that define our skylines, aluminium is everywhere, quietly supporting the American way of life. But in 2025, aluminium became the unlikely star of a sweeping economic experiment, one that promised to restore American manufacturing to its former glory. The government's new policy was bold, ambitious, and as it turned out, deeply controversial. It was a gamble that would send shockwaves through the economy, affecting not just factories but families, communities, and the very fabric of American industry. The Trump administration made headlines by doubling the existing 25% tariff on aluminium imports, raising it to a staggering 50%. This wasn't just a minor adjustment, it was a dramatic escalation, a move that signaled a new era of economic nationalism. The message was clear: America would do whatever it took to protect its own. The goal was simple on paper: protect American jobs, revive shuttered smelters, and make American aluminium great again. Supporters envisioned a renaissance of industry, with factories roaring back to life and workers returning to jobs that had vanished overseas. The logic behind the policy was straightforward: make foreign aluminium more expensive, so American companies would have no choice but to buy domestic. That, in turn, would restart idle factories, bring back lost jobs, and breathe new life into struggling towns. It was a vision that promised hope to communities left behind by globalization. But this was no minor tweak to trade policy. It was, in effect, an economic war, one that targeted not just rivals but also long-standing allies. The world watched as the United States drew a line in the sand, daring others to cross it. Soon, the policy's reach expanded far beyond raw aluminium. Hundreds of products containing aluminium or steel, from car parts to construction materials, even household goods, were swept up in the new tariffs. The ripple effects touched nearly every corner of the economy. The administration painted a vivid picture of bustling factories, humming assembly lines, and a new era of American prosperity. They promised that these bold moves would not only create high-paying jobs, but also generate tariff revenue to help pay down the national debt. A win-win for workers and taxpayers alike. Politicians spoke of paychecks growing, families thriving, and a future where American industry once again led the world. The narrative was powerful, tapping into a deep well of nostalgia and hope for a return to better days. For communities desperate for revival, places where factories had closed and main streets had emptied, this policy was sold as the answer they'd been waiting for. It was a promise of renewal, a pledge that the American dream was still alive for those willing to fight for it. The stage was set for a great American comeback. Optimism ran high, and for a moment, it seemed as if a new chapter in American manufacturing was about to be written. But beneath the surface, cracks were already beginning to show. The only problem? The script was pure fiction. After the announcement, hope surged in America's industrial heartland. For the first time in years, workers who had watched their towns wither and their jobs disappear felt a renewed sense of purpose. The air was thick with anticipation, and conversations in diners and union halls buzzed with talk of a new era. Families who had struggled through layoffs and plant closures dared to imagine a brighter future, one where their children might find steady work close to home. Idle smelters seemed poised for a comeback, and union leaders cheered the move. The reopening of long, quiet gates was more than symbolic. It was a lifeline for entire communities. Local businesses, from diners to hardware stores, hoped for a ripple effect as paychecks returned and spending picked up. The story was simple: foreign cheaters caused America's decline, and tariffs would fix it. Headlines and talk radio echoed this narrative, painting a clear villain and a straightforward solution. For many, it was a story that made sense of years of hardship. The administration framed the tariff as a patriotic duty and a strategic necessity. Officials spoke of defending American workers and restoring national pride, urging citizens to rally behind the cause. The message was clear: supporting tariffs was supporting the country itself. The short-term goal: force manufacturers to buy American aluminum. This, leaders argued, would jumpstart production and create jobs almost overnight. Factories would hum again, and the Made in USA label would become a badge of honor. The long-term vision: rebuild the industrial base and secure national security. By investing in domestic production, America would be less vulnerable to global shocks and foreign manipulation. The promise was not just economic revival, but a safer, stronger nation. For a moment, this narrative drowned out warnings from economists and downstream industries. Skeptics who cautioned about higher costs or unintended consequences were sidelined, their concerns lost in the wave of optimism. News segments showed eager workers, and rallies celebrated the policy as a promise kept. Politicians touted early successes, and local news anchors highlighted stories of families getting back on their feet. The focus was on jobs returning, factories reopening, and communities saved. Main streets that had been quiet for years buzzed with new activity, and hope seemed to be making a comeback. Doubts were dismissed as defeatist talk. Anyone who questioned the policy was seen as lacking faith in America's ability to bounce back, or worse, as siding with foreign interests. But the Great Revival never came. Despite the initial surge of optimism, the reality proved far more complicated, and the promised transformation remained just out of reach. The first sign of trouble? Silence. No factories reopened. The grand vision of revitalizing the industry was met with an eerie stillness. Hopes were high, but reality painted a different picture. The once bustling floors remained empty, and the gates stayed shut, a stark reminder of the gap between intention and outcome. Alcoa and other producers warned, tariffs can't fix the real problem: sky-high energy costs. Executives held press conferences trying to shed light on the underlying issues. Energy bills piled up, and the financial strain became evident. The industry leaders knew that without addressing these core issues, no amount of tariff protection could save them. Aluminium smelting is all about cheap, constant electricity, not just import prices. The process demands immense power, and without affordable energy, operations grind to a halt. The glowing molten metal and sprawling power lines tell a story of dependency on a steady, economical power supply. The tariff ignored this, and the result was disaster. Workers, once hopeful, now left the plants with concern etched on their faces. Headlines screamed of an industry in turmoil, a disaster that could have been averted with a more nuanced approach. Imported aluminium got pricier, but so did costs for every American company using it. The ripple effect was undeniable. Stacks of imported ingots became more expensive, and American manufacturers felt the pinch. Rising bills were a constant reminder of the escalating costs. Car makers, aerospace firms, and even beer can producers faced soaring expenses. The impact was widespread, touching every corner of the manufacturing sector. Assembly lines slowed, and the cost of production soared, affecting industries far and wide. And even beer can producers faced soaring expenses. The humble beer can, a staple of American life, now came with a heftier price tag. Conveyor belts moved slower, and the cost of a simple can of beer reflected the broader economic strain. They could either absorb losses or pass costs to consumers, making U.S. products less competitive. Business meetings grew tense as executives grappled with tough decisions. Absorbing losses meant financial strain, while passing costs to consumers risked losing market share. Or pass costs to consumers, making U.S. products less competitive. Supermarket shelves told the story: higher price tags and fewer buyers. The empty shopping carts were a testament to the dwindling competitiveness of American products. The protective wall became a prison. What was meant to shield the industry now trapped it. Factories, once symbols of American industrial might, now stood behind barbed wire, with workers peering out, wondering what went wrong. Instead of a boom, layoffs swept the industry. The promise of job creation turned into a wave of layoffs. Workers left with their belongings, and bulletin boards displayed grim notices of job cuts. Downstream manufacturers, employing far more people than smelters, were hit hardest. The broader manufacturing sector, employing thousands, felt the brunt. Busy shop floors became eerily quiet, and workstations lay empty. The policy designed to save jobs was destroying them. Protests erupted as workers voiced their frustrations. Factories closed, and for lease signs became a common sight, marking the failure of a well-intentioned policy. The cure was worse than the disease. The broken ingots on the factory floor symbolized shattered dreams. Workers stood at the gates, disappointment and disillusionment clear on their faces. The attempt to cure the industry had only deepened its wounds. The fallout was devastating. Over 100,000 American jobs lost. Even smelting jobs, the ones the policy aimed to protect, vanished by the tens of thousands. Workers who believed in the promise found themselves unemployed and betrayed. In towns across the Midwest, factories closed, citing unbearable aluminium costs. The impact rippled outward, threatening local businesses and entire communities. The policy failed not because of foreign conspiracies, but basic economic ignorance. For every factory job lost, several more disappeared in the community. The very towns promised prosperity faced deeper crisis. The cause was clear: the tariff. It created a toxic business environment, driving even healthy companies out. The promise of protection delivered only pain. Why did the policy fail? The answer is on the factory's utility bill. Electricity is the biggest cost in aluminium production. US smelters pay double the rates of Canadian competitors, making them uncompetitive. No tariff can close that gap. It's like racing a lawnmower against a Formula One car. For decades, experts warned energy costs, not imports, were the real problem. The tariff treated a symptom, not the disease. It raised costs for everyone but didn't make US smelters viable. The policy was like giving a drowning man a heavier coat. The US and Canada took opposite paths. America built a tariff wall, hoping to shield its industry. Canada invested in cheap, clean hydroelectric power, especially in Quebec. Their strategy: outcompete, not block out. When tariffs hit, Canadian smelters thrived, powered by low-cost energy. Their advantage was structural, not political. Canada didn't need tariffs. They had turbines. The US used a political tool to solve an economic problem. Canada built long-term strength by focusing on inputs. When the trade winds shifted, Canada sailed ahead, America sank. The difference was clear: investment versus isolation. While US towns faced layoffs, Canada boomed. The tariff made Canadian aluminium the go-to choice for North America. Output surged, factories ran at full capacity, and hiring sprees began. Jobs lost in Ohio reappeared in Quebec. Canada used the disruption to expand exports to Europe and Asia. The US tariff became a global marketing campaign for Canadian aluminium. The policy meant to help America fuel a Canadian renaissance. The damage didn't stop at smelters. The tariff spread through supply chains, hitting manufacturers hard. Auto, aerospace, and construction companies faced soaring input costs. Car makers had to absorb losses, raise prices, or move production abroad. Layoffs and price hikes followed, hurting American consumers. Major brands blamed tariffs for rising costs and supply chain chaos. The tariff became a broad tax on businesses and families. Modern economies are interconnected. Hurting one part hurts the whole. The attempt to save one industry weakened many others. The lesson is clear: you can't solve complex problems with simple slogans. Tariffs are blunt tools that often cause more harm than good. The real issue was high US energy costs, not unfair trade. The policy destroyed jobs, boosted Canada, and weakened US manufacturing. Canada invested in strengths, America built walls. Revitalizing industry takes long-term investment, not quick fixes. Address root causes, not just symptoms. You can't tariff your way out of reality, and reality always wins. Thanks for watching a video. Subscribe to the channel now for more updates. Thanks.